In this video, finally, we're going to get into actual movement and the nervous system retraining to improve your scoliosis. If you haven't watched my previous videos where I talked about how scoliosis affects your body and then functions, and then why stretching and strengthening the muscles aren't enough to improve your scoliosis. And be sure to watch those videos. They're very, very helpful, and it's helpful to understand those things and before you actually get into these exercises, because it's really not about doing an exercises, but you have to understand why you need to do these movement retraining. So I'll put the links in the comment and also description below, so be sure to watch them. So let's get into the movement retraining and the nervous system retraining. We'll do it in a chair, sitting in a chair. So preferably, you want to sit in a firm chair that is relatively flat and level, so it's not so concave or tilted or slanted. And have a seat. Sit on the front of the chair. I always prefer to sit on the front of the chair. Reason why is that when you sit all the way back, it really compromises the ability to move from the hips, which is important. So scoot, scoot, scoot forward. Then it frees up the hip joints. Then you can actually move from the hips more easily. So that's why I always say sit on the front of the chair, if you're wondering why. So anyways, sitting in a chair, knees are bent, feet apart, not close together, not too wide apart. Why? Because when you have your feet close together, then, all right, what happens is that you can't really move all that well. Same thing, when your legs are too wide, then you can't really move that well. So let's start more the neutral position. Hips, knees, ankles, more or less in a straight line. Sitting in more the neutral posture, not really stiff. You want to be comfortable, but in a comfortably upright neutral posture. You're not holding yourself too tight. So from here, you're going to, all right, also keep in mind, and this is focusing on the retraining the patterns, the movement patterns and posture patterns to help improve your scoliosis. Scoliosis meaning that you have a lateral curvature of the spine, maybe the C curve, maybe the S curve. It doesn't matter which patterns or what specific scoliosis that you may have. You're gonna practice and moving, retraining in both directions anyway, so don't worry about that part, really. So here, as you are starting from here, and you're going to do the first part is the weight shifting onto my left. You can also do the same side as well, onto the left here. When you do that, keep your legs stable, so it's not, the knees are not tilting side to side here. And you're not raising the heels, right? So the heels, feet are nice and firmly grounded. Shift your weight, you lift one sit bone. I'm lifting my right sit bone to shift your weight over to that side. So what it does is it shifts the weight and it exaggerates the curvature of the spine. That may be increasing your bias, or that may be moving opposite direction of the bias. But in any case, we're just doing in a way that is exaggerating the curvature of the spine. Here, and coming back to the center. So we'll start with these movements. Let's do slowly 5 times. Slowly 5 times. When you do that, I want you to think about lifting your sit bone by pushing through your heel of that same leg. Initiating the movement from your leg in order to lift your hip, exaggerating the curvature, okay? And then coming back. Knees are staying stable and coming back, right? So do 2 more times. Lift. You can feel that shape of the spine changes. You don't really force it. It's not a stretching, okay? Stretching, strengthening muscles aren't enough. This is about brain. This is about the brain, right? Here, one more time, here, and come back. And now let's practice going over to the other side. Starting the movement by pushing through the heel, lifting your sit bone, and allowing, right? You're not making the spine to move. You're not forcing the spine to move like that. You're allowing the spine to fold to the side as you lift your hip, like so. You can exaggerate in a C curve this way now, right? Maybe this is your habitual bias, moving towards the habitual bias, which means that's an easier side for you because you're already doing that every day. But if you're moving opposite direction and moving into the non-habitual direction, then this is harder. So just to keep that in mind. Why is it difficult? Because this is your non-habitual direction, which is a good thing, right? Which is a good thing. You are now training and retraining the movements and learning to move into a new pattern. And that puts a completely different demands on the body, right? You're taking the stress off of all the parts that you're stressing day to day when you're moving into the opposite directions. Let's do one more time there. So be very, very mindful and intentional. And what is it that you are really sensing, right? So now, make it a little more complicated. Well, not complicated, it's just a little more complex. You're going to take your hands. You can interlace your hands or you can put your palms together, shoulder height or so. I'm going to do it this way. Elbows straight, not bent. Elbows straight. If you have a problem with the shoulders and you can't really hold your arms at 90 degrees, you can do this one. You can bring your arms at a lower position, that's fine. And then go ahead and do the same movements, lifting your right hip, sit bone away from the floor. At the same time, you're adding the movement of turning your arms to, let me see, I'm lifting my right hip, sit bone away from the chair. Same time, I'm turning my arms to the right or my clockwise directions. What it does is it exaggerates the same pattern even more from the top down. So you can see that it actually completes the C curve as I'm rotating the whole arms. It's not just the hands, rotating the shoulders too, which you can now begin to move my upper spine to the same directions here and coming back. All right? And as you do this one, if this is your habitual direction, then this movement feels more familiar to you. So that's how you know this is your habitual patterns. Does it feel easier? Does it feel more known to you? Familiar to you? It feels natural to you? Likely, that's your habitual pattern. And you might think that you shouldn't really do your habitual patterns because you want to correct that. But it actually works the opposite way because in your brain, the brain has to know that is your habitual patterns. And by exaggerating the patterns, and then you're helping the brain understand and recognize the same patterns and coming back to the center. We'll do it about slowly, about 5 times or so. Do it slowly, right? Almost as if you're talking to your own brain. You're having a conversation with the brain. This is the brain and nervous system retraining, right? It's not just moving the structures, moving the tissues, as you do with the stretch and exercise. That's what's different. Now you're going to the opposite directions. Which way you start with, it doesn't matter. But I usually prefer to start with the habitual direction, the direction that you already do, because that's easier. And then you go to the opposite side. So I'm going to change the directions. Now I'm going to push through this heel to lift my hip, sit bone away from the chair. Same time, I'm going to now turn my arms the opposite directions. Yeah, you can take your head with it too. You're not pushing the head. Everything kind of follows the patterns because the spine is moving into this C curve. And naturally, the head follows where the spine goes and coming back. I am making rather big movements for you to be able to see the movements. But it doesn't mean that you have to make the movement as big and extreme as possible in order to get the benefits. It's quite the opposite. It is about your brain sensing that patterns of the movements. So it's really about teaching the brain, right? Changing the brain patterns, and so that which will going to change your muscles, how the muscle is being used. So that for you, it may be only a tiny bit like that. That's fine. You have to be comfortable as you're going through this one. Don't treat this movement as a stretching exercise, and don't think that the more the better. No pain, no pain, no gain. Just disregard that idea, and then the mindset, no pain, no gain. That's not true, right? If you have a pain, then you most likely to reinforce the protective patterns. Not going to help you, okay? Whoop, here, and coming back. Here, and coming back. And as I'm doing this one, I'm really concentrating on my body. Then I'm really having a dialogue with myself, with my brain. Here. I'm really feeling that movements of the spine, the whole body, as I'm moving into that directions, without really having the mindset of correcting. This has to be moving in this way more, or anything like that. It is about, understanding the patterns, the habitual patterns. That is enough to really change the patterns, believe it or not. Okay, then you come back to the middle, and then 5 times in each direction you alternate, going side and side. And you will notice that the two sides move very differently, right? Because structurally, functionally, we don't use the body in the same way, one direction, the other direction. So you'd expect that movement is going to feel quite different. It's not going to be the same. One side is easier, one side is not as easy, but make it as fluid and as coordinated as possible. Hip moving, and then everything, distributing the curvature of the spine more evenly, movement through the spine more evenly. Here, side, 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 right? You can see as you're doing these movements, you find balance on the one leg, you find balance on the other leg, balance it out, and you come back to the middle. And you probably feel quite different from the start after going through these habitual directions, non-habitual directions, habitual direction, non-habitual direction after a few times. The brain starts to integrate the new patterns, and then your normal or your natural sitting posture is probably changed from the beginning. So notice how you're feeling and what you notice in your body, in your posture. And in the comments, and let me know, write it down and tell me if you notice the posture is different. You feel different in your body right now after having through these movements a few times. Okay, so you can think about this and use these exercises during your day while you're sitting. You just do easy, right? 5 times habitual directions, 5 times non-habitual directions, and then 5 times alternating side to side. And you do that maybe 3 times or 4 times a day throughout your day. And then that's constantly you are reminding the brain, okay, so this is your habitual patterns and this is your non-habitual patterns. Then you can start to recalibrate and change your habitual patterns. And that's how you're going to improve your scoliosis, which is going to last for a long time. But it takes repetitions. It takes your attention. Keep that in mind. Again, if you haven't watched my previous videos, and please check those videos, as I put the links down below in the description, and as well as maybe I'll put in the comment section as well. So check them out. And what else? Please hit the like button if you like this video. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and then share with your friends and family. And I appreciate your support. And next video, we'll go over another movement and the nervous system retraining. And next video. That's it for now. Stay tuned. I want to let you know that you can join my free masterclass, Path to Comfort, Confidence, and Authenticity in Your Body. And this is an overview of my comprehensive movement course called Understanding How Your Body Moves Method. if you want to submit your application to this course, and you can do so in the master class. So I hope to see you inside the master class.